Hey everybody, Spartan here from SpartanTrading.com. I got asked this a few times this week and I figured it would make a good YouTube video. So what I wanted to do was just talk about this very simple concept. And this is another trading's basic. And it's basically just looking at and recognizing when momentum on a stock is dying. Now, there's one main way that I do this. There's a couple more complex things that we can talk about at the end, but I just want to give you a very easy visual that you can use, the next time you start trading or the next time you're trading, especially if you're a newer trader, to recognize when that momentum is dying down. So let's quickly look at two examples. I want to look at one from an intraday chart today, NVAX, and I want to look at one from a daily. So if I'm looking at NVAX here, and I'm just going to draw this parabolic trend line. So when I see momentum, basically what is momentum? Momentum would be when you get continuous buying to the upside or continuous selling to the downside, where you typically don't get very big pullbacks to the trend line. And what happens is the trend actually almost seems like it's vertical or very close to. That's how you can recognize a stock that has momentum. Now, when we actually recognize the momentum's dying down, if we're in the stock, obviously we want to take profits. If we're not in that stock, we want to look to maybe take the stock short. So this can be used on two sides. If you're a short seller, or looking to become a short seller, you would definitely want to understand this concept so that if you're shorting, let's say, a low float stock that has momentum, you're only doing so when that momentum actually dies down, because you don't want to get in the front of essentially a freight train and get run over. Of course, you can use stops and things like that, but if you're not disciplined, you can get hurt. Anyways, recognizing momentum's dying down. So in this example, what I'm going to do is just quickly bring up the charting tool here. Where is it? Oh, there you go. Trend line. And I'm going to quickly just draw the parabolic trend. So right out the gate this morning, you would see the trend would form from this line here. Oops. What you always want to do when you draw a trend line, guys, is literally find 2 points that match up and create a visual representation of a trend, and that typically is going to be your trend for the entire day. So in this case, I'm just going to connect those to the low here. So you can see that, this is that parabolic trend line. What you'd want to do is just draw that parabolic trend, as it's bouncing off of that level the entire day. You don't necessarily want to get out of the stock until you get a confirmed break. What's a confirmed break? It'd be a candle closing below that trend line. So in this case, I'm looking at the 10-minute candle. So what I'd want to see is a full 10-minute candle closing below that line. So we'd have to wait for a full 10 minutes of a candle to be below that, the price to be closing below that trend line. In this case, it doesn't happen until the end of the day here. Not the end of the day, but close to the end of the day here, where you get that trend test, you break the trend line, and then that basically the parabolic trend is dead. Now, in this case, EMAs and things like that are still holding up, which can act as support, but the momentum has died down. Now, we can further see that it has died down because we get a flag break to the upside, we get a double top and a rejection. If the momentum was still there, it would have been able to break that double top and continue to go higher. Now, very simple concept. You just draw that parabolic trend line. Once it breaks, that's your signal that momentum's dying down. Other things that we want to look at is typically when momentum starts to die down or is going to die down, you almost get a blow-off candle. And that's what I like to call one of these big candles that pushes to the upside, a blow-off candle. What's associated with that is a large volume spike or larger volume spike than what was previous happening in the trend. So you can see that obviously, there's a little bit of a large sell and there was a large buy and then there was another large sell. So you kind of got 3 blow-off candles to the upside here. One visually that you can see and then 3 from a volume perspective. Then after the volume started to come in a little bit, obviously volume was a little bit lower than the rest of the day. The buying volume wasn't necessarily there like it was consistently the entire day, which again, another representation of volume dying down, and then obviously the stock sold off at the end of the day. Now, when we look at a daily chart, we're looking at the same thing, except we're just looking at a bigger time frame. So, same concept. You want to draw your parabolic trend line in this case on CVNA. Let's just draw it here. So I'm connecting this one to this one, which is giving my parabolic trend. Now, parabolic trend, one thing that's happening here is, and I'll talk about this just very briefly, but we have a channel to the upside within this parabolic trend. It broke the channel to the upside. And then we had a parabolic pop above that top channel, which tends to happen when you do break top channels. And then you tend to get a pull back into the bottom or the top of that channel, which it did hold and eventually did break. But that's what that big spike was there. Same concept as before, though. You have, consistent buying. How can you tell there's consistent buying? More green than red, basically, if you want to keep it very simple. Then eventually what we had was the trend line breaking, as well as EMAs breaking to the downside, and then volume from a selling standpoint started to increase. Once you get the trend line breaking, close underneath that level, that parabolic trend would be broken, and you'd want to exit that position. If you're a short seller, that would be a signal to go, okay, let's take this thing short. Maybe we have some room to the next support, which in this case would be the support there, and then obviously that 50 EMA that is currently being tested. So pretty easy and simple concept, recognizing when momentum's dying down. Very useful, obviously, if you're in a stock long that has momentum and you want to know when to exit, or if you're looking to short stocks that are, going parabolic and you want to wait for the right time to take it. This would be a good place to look to grab it. Other things to consider, like I said, are the volume itself. But if you want to keep it very basic, then you just would draw the parabolic trend line and use that specifically. So that's all I want to talk about today, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to go to SpartanTrading.com. Happy to help. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.